Hello, everybody. I'm Don Counts. Welcome into the FPU studio today. And today we've got our CEO General Manager, Britt with us as normal. And we also have Scott Brooks from TVA, Public Relations Specialist. And we're going to talk about fuel cost adjustment today, and we'll go into the depths of that. But first of all, Scott, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do at TVA.
Sure. Again, I'm Scott Brooks. I'm a public relations specialist. So that means I do what we're doing right now. I spend a lot of my time talking to the public, talking to the media, telling the good news and sometimes the not so good news about TVA. I've been with TVA about 13 years. So I've gotten to travel a good bit of the state and the TVA territory in that time. So
very good. Well, thank you. Appreciate you coming. Britt, let's talk a little bit about the Tennessee Valley Authority and Fayetteville Public Utilities and our relationship.
Well, we have a good partnership with TVA, and we've been working with TVA for a long time now. And, they support us, we support TVA and what their ideals are, vision, and they support our ideals and vision as well.
And how often do you communicate with TVA?
Probably about 3 times a week.
Okay, all right. One thing people might not understand as we go down to the bare bones, we get our power from the Tennessee Valley Authority and then we distribute it out.
That's correct.
Scott, let's talk a little bit about the fuel cost adjustment. We call it on our bill the total fuel cost adjustment. And when some people hear it all the time, people think fuel, we're talking about gasoline, which has nothing to do with that.
Nope. So we'll back up and start with, I guess, a little bit of TVA 101. Like you said, we are the wholesale power producer, which means we run the generating plants, the nuclear, the coal, the natural gas. We run the river, the Tennessee River, 9 dams on the Tennessee main stem. That's what we call free fuel from the sky. When it rains, we get the fuel from that through our dams. And then we provide that power to 153 local power companies, including Fayetteville. And so what we do is we send you guys a bill, just like you bill your customers every month on the wholesale level. And so TVA has not had a wholesale power rate adjustment in 4 years. We've been flat essentially for the last 4 years. But what has changed and changes every month is the fuel cost adjustment. And like you mentioned, that is exactly the cost that we pay to fuel our generating sources. So we have to buy the natural gas that powers our plants. We have to buy the coal that powers our plants. We're not talking about gasoline for our vehicles or for your vehicles. It is the fuel to run our generating plants, and we have to pay for that, and then we pass that on every month in the fuel cost adjustment.
We hear that quite often, don't we, Britt? And also we hear a lot of misinformation on social media. That's why we're here to try to clear the air.
Oh, that's right. That's we thought this would be a good idea for the customers to see and try to understand more about what the total fuel monthly cost is. And so far, a lot of them do understand, and some of them don't understand why we have it on our bill and others don't.
Yeah, that's another good, valid question right off the bat. Do all of the 153 local power companies have the fuel cost adjustment?
Sure. TVA has the wholesale fuel cost adjustment that we pass on to all 153. Some of them break it out on the bills, others don't. So that may be a little bit where the confusion is, because I know you guys do,
That's right.
And other local power companies don't necessarily, but it's always there. Every local power company has a fuel cost adjustment somewhere in their bill.
Britt, we hear this all the time. People from maybe some surrounding areas that they say, well, they don't have fuel cost adjustment on their bill.
Well, that's right. But, it's included in their energy charge. So they're paying a fuel cost adjustment. And we figured back many years ago when this came out, as TVA put the fuel cost adjustment out there, we thought it was a good idea to put it on the bill, just to let the customer know. We try to be more transparent of what you're paying for.
Absolutely. Trying to be transparent, and that's sometimes good, sometimes not so good, because it causes some confusion for sure. But let's talk about, he mentioned, when did the fuel cost adjustment start, and why did it start?
Sure. So there have always been, costs for fuel ever since TVA has been around. But we started doing what you guys know as a fuel cost adjustment on a yearly basis around 2006. And then we moved that to a monthly adjustment to make it a little easier to manage the ups and downs around 2012. So we've had a monthly fuel cost adjustment since about 2012.
When we talk about the fuels, what are the resources that we're talking about? You mentioned some water, but let's talk about all of them.
Sure. So TVA has what we call a diverse generating portfolio, which means we try not to have too much of any one source, and that helps us avoid major cost changes. So right now we have about 40% of our power is nuclear. We have 3 nuclear power plants that are along the Tennessee River.
Right.
We have about 15-20% is coal. We still have some coal plants. We've reduced our amount of coal generation over the last decade or so. And natural gas is increasing. We're up to 25-ish% natural gas plants all around the territory. And then we have, like we mentioned, we have water, the hydro plants. Right. About 9 to 10% of our annual generation is hydro. And then we have the rest of that would be solar,
right.
Renewable energy sources. Right. And then we have a certain amount that we purchase from other utilities, and how that works is when sometimes it is cheaper to buy power from our neighbors than it is for us to generate it.
Right.
And so we take advantage of that whenever we can to benefit the consumer.
Let's talk about the ups and downs, the fluctuation that maybe the customer, which we in the public relations, we try to get that information out to the public, and we talk about it going up and we talk about it going down. And might explain that to the public why that is.
Sure. Well, again, the fuel cost adjustment goes up and down every month based exactly on our cost for the fuel, and that does change every month. So the 2 biggest factors, number one is the cost of those generating sources, the cost of natural gas, the cost of coal. And of course, natural gas and coal are the 2 biggest factors right now in the reason things are swinging, but it's also the amount of power you actually use. So we've had 2 things happen this summer that led to really unusually high fuel costs. Mm-hmm. Number one is the cost of natural gas. Natural gas for us, the cost went up about 140% from June 21 to June of 22. So that's a huge increase in a year in particular. And then June and July both, we set 6 records for peak demand days. So 6 days in June, 6 days in July that were records for those months. So that means a lot of people were using a lot more energy than they normally would that time of year, and than they would the rest of the year. And you put those 2 factors together, and it definitely led to some pinch, some power bills that were very uncomfortable in August and September.
Oh, that's right. We hear a lot on social media. People call in, people talk to us about, Britt, I leave my central unit on 75 degrees the whole time, and I don't understand why my bill went up. So maybe you can go through the explanation. I know y'all keep up with temperatures, outside temperatures, and all that, and might talk about that.
Well, what we do is we calculate what the cooling degree days are, then we calculate what the heating degree days are. But at the same time, if you're setting at 75 degrees on your thermostat and it's 80-something degrees outside, you're going to get a better benefit. But if it's 115 degrees heat index and you still set on 75 degrees, your unit's still going to run longer to make up the difference. But, it's going to increase even though if you haven't moved your thermostat. It's just what you're trying to do is just, you try to keep it at a steady rate, I guess you can say, rather if you might want to raise it more the hotter it gets or something to try to keep your heat and air from coming on during those times.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, tell us a little bit some of the other things that I guess you hear as you travel around the Tennessee Valley.
Talking about fuel costs in particular? Yeah. I mean, I can certainly say it's not unique to Fayetteville. It's not unique to this part of the state.
Okay.
We serve 10 million people in 7 states, and we hear the same thing from just about everybody in every part of the territory we serve. And it's not just TVA either. I mean, this is nationwide. The other utilities around us are facing the same issues, and they're having to deal with it because we're public power. We're a little more directly involved with you guys, but some of the other investor utilities around us are having to go through their public service commissions and request 15-20% rate increases and go through all of that. So I think we feel pretty fortunate to be involved in public power where we can work directly with the customers like Fayetteville to explain what we're doing right now.
And we're doing what we can do to give people the power, get the power to them, and take care of our customer, Britt.
That's right. And, next month, or this month, actually, the fuel cost adjustment will be going down a little bit. And then for the month of October, we'll go into a transition rate as well. So the energy rate will go down just a little bit. So it's going to help in the next few months, but we're all concerned about what's going to happen this winter.
Yeah. Over the years, as we've been doing the public relations to let people know what's going on so they can calculate their bill, you can see, though, that how confusing it can be to the customer, and then the transmission months and that kind of thing. Can you explain a little bit of that?
Sure, and then to make it even more confusing, 153 local power companies can put their bills 153 different ways. So as you mentioned earlier, the neighboring utilities might not break it out. Right. It might be listed differently on from one bill to another between the companies. Right. So it's we do all we can to manage the wholesale power rate, which we send to you all, right. And then you all add on your retail level. So. It's it can be confusing, actually.
Yeah, well, we are trying to make sure that the people understand that in our case, Britt, it's a pass-through to TVA, and I guess that's just the way it's always been.
That's the way it's always been. I don't really like hearing that, but that's the way it's always been.
Well, I'm just making sure. Some people think that we're raising the rates or that kind of thing, and that kind of. But it's a pass through to Tennessee Valley Authority. But Scott, anything else that we hadn't covered?
Well, just to kind of put it in perspective, I guess the wholesale power rate is still lower than 80% of the country. So we're very fortunate in the Tennessee Valley. But then when you talk about the fuel costs, as we mentioned, to put it in perspective, we've been pretty fortunate over the last decade or so that our fuel cost adjustment stayed right around 2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about a third of the wholesale bill. But as we mentioned, in the last year, we went from about 2 cents a kilowatt hour. August was the highest fuel cost adjustment in TVA history. It was about 4.6 cents per kilowatt hour. Mm-hmm. Luckily, as you mentioned, fortunately, it is going back down in September, right around 3.1 cents. And we expect the same thing for October. Right? It will stay right around. So more than in years past, but at least a little bit of relief. And then when you add in the cooler temperatures over the next couple of months, relief is on the way, at least for the next few months.
We will see some high bills, I'm sure, coming from the last bill, Britt. But we have some, we have budget billing, we have our smart hub, we have easy ways to pay, and we do our best to keep the bills as low as we can.
That's right, Don. And, also we're very involved with South Central out there, to help the customers with the bills. And as well, if you need an arrangement or something like that set up here so we can help you get your bill paid, we'll also do that. All you have to do is give us a call or come in and see us, and we'll get you set up to help you make your payments.
Absolutely. Well, anything else, Britt, before we go?
No, I really appreciate Scott coming down and explaining the fuel cost adjustment, and I hope it gives a better understanding to our customers what the fuel cost adjustment actually is and what it's used for.
Absolutely. Scott, anything else before we go?
I'll just say that we have been kind of following this and trying to provide information as well. On TVA.com, we have a newsroom out there that has some articles about the fuel cost adjustment and a whole page that kind of explains what that is on our website.
Very good. Well, you're welcome back anytime. We appreciate you coming down and talking to us, and we appreciate you, Britt, for making this happen, and we appreciate you watching from Fayetteville Public Utilities Studios. I'm Don Counts, and we'll see you back in here next time.